Assalamu alaikum. In today's lesson, we're going to study the differences between using the past simple, the past continuous, and the past perfect. So let's watch. Okay, we start with the past simple first. Usually, we use it in the majority of the situations. If you're talking about the past, make sure that you use the past simple, unless there is a strong reason to use another tense. But if there is no reason, you will be safe if you just use the past simple all the time. Like these examples, I ate my lunch an hour ago. I traveled to America in 2006. I broke my leg while I was playing soccer. So we have the past simple here, there, and there, past simple. Okay. Now we use the other tenses if there is a reason, and I'm going to explain these reasons to you. So the past continuous. Now, if you have two actions and one of them was happening, it was taking place, but the second one interrupted the first action, we use the past continuous for the first action and the past simple for the second one. Maybe you don't understand this, but I'm going to explain it to you. I'm going to give you some good examples. Look at that. I was walking down the street when it began to rain. So I was walking. This is the first action. I was simply walking down the street, right? And then in the middle of my walk, it began to rain. You can look at that. I was walking, and in the middle of my walk, it began to rain. So we use the past continuous for this action and the past simple for the second one. The same sentence can be written like this. While I was walking down the street, it began to rain. It's the same, basically the same. We just changed the connector from when to why. Rita was standing under a tree when it began to rain. So again, this is the first action. She was standing like that. And then in the middle, it began to rain. Was standing, past continuous, began to rain, past simple. Okay, now look at this one. At 8 o'clock last night, I was studying. We don't have two actions here in the situation, but we have a specific point in time, 8 o'clock. Now, if you are describing what you were doing at a specific point of time, use the past continuous because you started before 8. You didn't start at 8, you started before 8. We don't know exactly when you started, and we don't know exactly when you finished after 8, but we know that at this time you were studying. Last year, at this time, I was attending school. Like at this time, around these days, this is what I was doing. So the action of attending school happened before this time, and it continued during this time, and it finished after this time. Now look at this example. While I was studying in one room of our apartment, my roommate was having a party in the other room. These two actions do not interrupt each other. They were happening at the same time, and none of them was like I was studying in one room and he was having a party. So like none of them happened in the middle of the other action, but like both of them were happening in parallel at the same time, simultaneously. Let's practice. What you need to do is to look at these sentences and complete them using the past simple or the past continuous. Please pause the screen, grab a pen and a piece of paper and actually write down your answers. And in a few seconds, I am going to show you the correct answers. Okay, now let's take a look at the right answers. I don't want to go to the zoo today because it's raining. The same thing happened yesterday. I didn't want, not I wasn't wanting. First of all, you need to know that want is a state verb. It doesn't take ing anyway. I don't want to go to the zoo because it was raining, past continuous. Okay. I called Ahmed at 9 o'clock yesterday. I called him, like I started actually calling him at 9 o'clock yesterday, but he wasn't at home, right? Why? He was studying at the library, past continuous. At night, like before 9 o'clock, he was studying. This is the action that he was doing at this time. He was studying at the library. Number 3, I didn't hear the thunder during the storm last night because I was sleeping. Like I started sleeping before the storm, and that's why in the middle of the storm, I didn't hear the thunder. It was beautiful yesterday when we went for a walk in the park. The sun was shining, a cool breeze was blowing, the birds were singing. Here, none of these actions are interrupting each other. I'm talking about the background events that were taking place when we were having a walk in the park. So when you're describing some situations that were happening, like you're talking about, like as if you're telling a story, for example, and you're describing the background events that were taking place at the beginning of the story, use the past continuous for all of them. The sun was shining, the breeze was blowing and the birds were singing. And when you talk about the first action, you can use the past simple. So you can say, and suddenly a man approached me, like that. Number 5, my brother and sister were arguing about something when I walked into the room. So they started arguing before I walked into the room, and this is what happened. When it comes to the past perfect, basically look at this timeline. It will explain everything to you. You can see the past here, and that's the present moment, and this is the future. Now you have two actions in the past, and one of them happened and finished, and it got completed before another action got started. So in this case, we use the past perfect for the first action and the past simple for the second one. The difference between the past perfect and the past continuous is that with the past continuous, one action was happening and then the second action interrupted the first one, like it happened in the middle. But here, one action happened and finished, and then the second action started after the end of the first action. Like this example, Sam had already left by the time Anne got there. So Sam left, and then Anne got there and didn't even see him. If you choose to use the past continuous here in the situation, if you say Sam was leaving by the time Anne got there, so this means that Anne met him. She saw him. He was opening the door, for example, getting ready to leave, and then she saw him. But here she didn't have a chance to see him. That's what happened. The thief simply walked in. Someone had forgotten to lock the door. So this is the first action. Someone had forgotten to lock the door. And this is the second action. The thief simply walked in. Sam had already left when Anne got there. This sentence has the same meaning as the first one. We're just changing the connector. Instead of using by the time, we're just using and. It's the same meaning. So this means Sam left first and then Anne got there. That's the whole thing. Now, if you use before or after, if you use before, like here, or after, using the past perfect is optional. You may choose to use the past perfect or just ignore it. Why is it optional? Because the meaning is clear. You don't need to illustrate the meaning by using the past perfect. Usually, the past perfect is a tense which is used to add clarity to the meaning to avoid any confusion. If you feel that the person listening to you will be confused, you use the past perfect to tell this person what happened first and what happened after that. But if you use before or after, the meaning is clear because before indicates what happened first and what happened after that. After does the same thing. But when you use words like by the time or when or things like that, these words don't really indicate what happened first and what happened after that. Like, for example, let's imagine the situation. Look at the situation. Sam had already left when Anne got there. Can you use the past simple here instead of the past perfect? Yes, you can. You can say Sam left when Anne got there. Will the meaning be the same? It will not be the same. It will be different. It will mean that Sam left after Anne got there. You see, this is the problem with using words like when. You could actually use the past perfect or the past simple, but the meaning is not going to be the same. But look at the sentence here. Sam had left before Anne got there. So this means that Sam left first and then Anne got there. You can also say Sam left before Anne got there. Using the past perfect or the past simple doesn't change the meaning. This sentence has the same meaning as this one. It's the same. There's no difference. So you see what happened here when you change it from past perfect to past simple, you change the meaning completely of the sentence. But if you have before or after, if you change from past perfect to the past simple, the meaning doesn't change. And this is why using the past perfect is optional if you have before or after. Another example, after the guests had left, I went to bed. So first they left and then I went to bed. If you use the past simple instead of the past perfect, there will be no difference in meaning. After the guests left, I went to bed. It's the same meaning still. First they left and then I went to bed. So it's optional to use the past perfect if you have after or before because the meaning doesn't really change. But in this situation, it's not optional. You have to use the past perfect to indicate the sequence of the actions to the person listening to you. Let's take some exercises. Here, you're supposed to fill in the blanks using the past simple or the past perfect. Please take some time, pause the screen, and grab a pen and a piece of paper. Actually, write down your answers, and then I'm going to show you the answers in a few seconds. Okay, let's take a look at the answers together. Sam had been a news reporter before he became a businessman. Now, you may say, if you're a good student and you're paying attention, you may say that here we have before, so we can use the past simple here. Yes, definitely, for sure. You can say Sam was a news reporter before he became a businessman. The meaning is clear because we have before, so it's up to you if you want to use the past perfect here or the past simple. It's really optional here. Okay, number two, I was late. The teacher had already given a quiz when I got to class. We use the past perfect here and the past simple here. The teacher gave the quiz before I got to class. And how do I know? Because I was late. I said at the beginning that I was late. It was raining hard, but by the time the class was over, the rain had stopped. So the rain stopped first, and then the class was over, right? How do we know? Because we have but. So this means that despite the fact that it was raining hard, this didn't affect us. So you see, you have to be sensitive for the use of words. If you have but, so there is a contrast between this sentence, it was raining hard, and then but we were not affected by this rain. Why? Because the class was over after the rain had stopped. Correct. Yesterday at a restaurant, I saw Aman, an old friend of mine. This is one sentence, one action. Use the past simple. Use the past simple. It's one action. I hadn't seen her in years. Oh, before this one action, there was another action which is not seeing her in years. So use the past perfect here in the situation. At first, I didn't recognize her. Past simple. At first, this is what happened. Why? Because she had lost a great deal of weight before she came to that restaurant. She had lost a great deal of weight. Number five, I had never seen any of Picasso's paintings before I visited the art museum. So we have two actions. The first one, not seeing Picasso's paintings, and the second one, visiting the museum. So this one takes the past perfect and that one takes the past simple. Now you may say we have before here in the situation. So using the past perfect is optional. You're right. We can use the past simple. I never saw any of Picasso's paintings before I visited the art museum. But it's better, in my opinion, if you use the past perfect. It means that you have better command of the English language and you know your tenses very well. Okay, let's take more exercises. All you have to do in here in the situation is to choose the correct form. I'll give you some time to do that. Okay, let's take a look at the answers together. Okay. They didn't win the game, although they had trained every evening. Why? I'll tell you why. So the training happened and finished before the game. The game did not interrupt the training. Like they were training every evening and then they stopped and then they played the game on a different day and they didn't win. If the game interrupted the training, then you use the past continuous. But the game, by definition, doesn't interrupt the training. You train in preparation for the game. So this is a completed action before the game. That's why we use the past perfect. Number two is easy. Mike had an accident while he was driving. It's very simple. You're driving, and in the middle of the driving, you have an accident. Number three, I cleaned the house when I got home. I got home first, and then I cleaned the house. How do I know? Because can you clean your house when you're not in it? If you're outside the house, how can you clean it? So you were inside the house first, and then you cleaned it. Don't be confused. When we arrived, the game started. It started after we arrived. How do we know? Because we got there just in time and saw the whole game. We saw the whole game. So we didn't miss any part. So this means that the game started after we arrived. The captain hadn't scored any goals when the referee ejected him. This is very simple. You have two actions. One of them is the past simple and then the past perfect, because not scoring happens before you get ejected. You cannot score goals after you get ejected, after you get kicked out of the game, right? It makes sense. Do the same thing. All you have to do is to choose the correct form. Pause the screen and actually decide what your answers are going to be, and then I'm going to show you the correct answers. Okay. My son got injured while he was playing basketball. This is very simple. In the middle of the basketball game, he got injured. Past continuous, past simple. Past simple here, past continuous here. Luckily, we had stopped skiing when the snowstorm started. We were already back at the hotel. So the storm started after we stopped skiing. And that's why we started by saying luckily. The Lakers were not losing any of their games during the trip to East Coast. In the middle of the trip, they were not losing any games. They didn't play games before the trip. If they played games before the trip, then we can use the past perfect. But we're talking about an action that happened in the middle of the trip. So we have to use the past continuous. The referee suspended the game. Why? Because it was raining, too hard to play. Got it? So first it rained, and then he suspended the game. And he suspended the game in the middle of the rain. Okay. Do the same thing here. Complete this with using the simple past or the past continuous or the past perfect. You need to take some time and actually think about the answers and pause the screen and write down these answers. Okay, I'll show you the correct answers. The accident happened when they were driving home. It's very simple. The accident happened in the middle of the drive. The crowd cheered when the referee had blown the final whistle. First, the referee blew the whistle, and then the crowd cheered. So the first action takes the past perfect. If you want to use the past simple here and there, no problems, because the meaning is clear. I think the meaning is clear. But to be more accurate, to be better, use the past perfect. I didn't recognize her at first. Why? Because she had changed it. First, she changed it, and then I wasn't able to recognize her. So the change takes the past perfect, and me not being able to recognize her takes the past simple. The police stopped her on the freeway because she wasn't wearing a seatbelt. She wasn't wearing, right? Wearing is a continuous action. Many people will make mistakes here in this part. They will say she didn't wear. No, you wear the seatbelt and you drive your car while you are still wearing the seatbelt. And if the police officer sees you and you're not wearing your seatbelt, the police officer will stop you. So use the past continuous here, not the past perfect. Nope. More exercises. Do the same thing. Complete using the simple past or the past continuous or the past perfect. Pause the screen and think about your answers and write them down. Okay, let's take a look at the answers. Some of the players were not listening while the coach was talking to them. This is a tricky question. You don't have any actions interrupting each other here. So the players, they were not listening, past continuous. And the coach was talking. None of these things interrupt each other. He was talking, they were not listening. Number 6, we couldn't use the ski slope because it hadn't snowed enough. Not enough snow was formed. And this is the reason why we couldn't use the ski slope. This action happened first, and then this action happened after that. Number 7, they were not able to play tennis because they hadn't booked a court. First, they forgot to book the court. Because of that, they were not able to play tennis. Past perfect here, past simple there. The player got a yellow card because he had taken off his shirt. First, he took off his shirt, and then he got a yellow card. Okay. I hope today's lesson was useful and easy. We talked about the past simple, past perfect, yes, and past continuous. If you have any questions, please let me know. Thank you so much for your time. Assalamu alaikum.